Welcome to the Wrestling Fallacy. I am your host, Paulie Falasher, and I am joined by second degree BJJ Black Belt, former MMA fighter Steve O'Keefe. How are you doing, Steve?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So today we just want to talk about essentially how it is to be a fighter, the training, the life, your lifestyle personally as well. So just as a quick start, when did you start fighting, and when did you start training for fighting anyway?
Okay, so I was 9 years old and I was living in Peckham. I was in a primary school where I was at Peckham when I was young, southeast London. Peckham when I was young was a very crime-riddled, aggressive area. There was a lot of gangs, and that was kind of the culture when you were growing up. You knew about the gangs, you was either a part of it or you avoided it completely. I was always somewhere in between because the kind of people that I hung about with were never involved in that. But then I had another group of friends that were all involved in that. And I kind of split my time between them because I'd play football with certain people that were involved in that, and then I'd do other stuff with other people that weren't involved in gangs at all. But I got myself into some trouble when I was young, and I probably started when I was about 9 years old. And then I was bullied by a few people in the year above. And again, these particular kids everyone was scared of them because their brothers were in gangs. So my parents got me into martial arts. It was Taekwondo at the time. And yeah, it went from there. Like, immediately my attitude changed, and I flourished. You know, I become more confident, obviously learned a skill. I've become dedicated and motivated towards something because I could see even at a young age that a lot of my friends and like my friends' brothers and my friends' dads were never making anything of themselves. So I knew that sport would always be a good angle for me.
I feel like there's a lot of negative connotations around martial arts. People call it cage fighting, stuff like that, and I feel like that's very disrespectful. As someone that's been there, done that, you've done basically everything from Taekwondo, Muay Thai, Jiu-jitsu. How do you feel about those connotations and what people say about that?
Well, like, it's just a sport in its own entity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's like you do have the negativity around MMA, but it's the few that create that negativity and the stereotype. It's just that you could say the same with Mike Tyson in boxing or Mayweather in boxing, because Mayweather's been accused of assaulting how many women?
Yeah.
You know, and he's the best boxer there's ever been. And then Mike Tyson is in that same category, and there's been plenty of other boxers, but that seems to kind of fly under the radar, and the sport's never affected by it. Really, it's always the person, never the sport. But when it's MMA, it's always the sport because it seems to be more barbaric. In my opinion, I think MMA is a lot safer than a lot of other sports. Well, sorry, MMA is a lot safer than boxing, because when we wear 4-ounce gloves and you get punched in the face, you're probably going to get knocked out, which is one concussive blow. When you're in boxing and you're going 12 rounds, you're getting hundreds of concussive blows, right? And you're not aiming for any other part of the body, you're aiming for the head every time. You may be trying to hit the body to open up the head, but you're aiming for the head, right? In MMA, it's different. We're taking each other down, we're putting submissions on, chokeholds and things like that.
In terms of just you as a fighter, how do you find training for fights? So, like, in terms of your training camp, how do you construct your training camp essentially?
Again, for me, it's more just like it's a motivation thing, right? I've been in fights, and these are the fights that I've lost, are the ones that I know I haven't trained hard enough. So I know at what level I need to train at to feel confident that I'm going to win. Conor McGregor's a good example of that. I know my wife at the time was 8 months pregnant. I was working full-time, not training full-time. Every time I told somebody, yeah, I'm going to win the fight, I didn't believe my own bullshit. You know, I didn't believe the words that were coming out my mouth. But then when I'm totally prepared, then I'm confident. And that's real confidence, isn't it? It's just preparation. So I do everything. I'll box with a boxing club. I'll do Muay Thai with my Muay Thai coach, Daniel Sam, at the time. I'll do Jiu-jitsu with my Jiu-jitsu coach, Marco Canio, at the time. And then obviously later on in my career, it was more like I would train with my fighters that I had developed since they were young, since 2017, since 2016, or actually since 2015. I'm developing these young fighters that are now professional athletes now, you know, and they're fighting and they're on the scene. One of which is in the UFC, and others in Cage Warriors and other promotions like that. So yeah, like it's just making sure that I'm consistent. That's my biggest thing, is consistency. Like I said to all my students, and obviously they're in the background here and they're training hard, and the ones that really flourish are the consistent ones. Danielle, for example, in the camera rash guard there, she's my most consistent student. She lives in Brighton. She comes down here to train twice a week with me. When she's not training with me, she's training with other really good clubs that are affiliates of the same affiliation as us, Checkmat. So I know she's training hard. I know she's training twice a day, 3 times a day to achieve her goals, and that's what it takes.
In terms of your diet, how do you go about that?
I love food, man. Like, I eat a lot of food. So obviously it's just been Christmas. I've been eating, I've been drinking. I tend to stay in good shape, and I train a lot now just because I want to stay in shape and eat what I want. So when I come to a point where I'm going to compete, which I'm going to compete in a month's time, then I will taper off all of the rubbish stuff, and I will just clean it up. Like, you don't have to be super strict if you know what you're doing. It's a science, isn't it, right? Yeah. So cutting weight for MMA, it's a science. I had to make 70 kilos. I'm 88 kilos right now. Yeah, I can make 70 kilos easy in the given time frame if I'm disciplined. It's just discipline. You don't have to cut everything out your diet. You don't have to be hungry. You just have to eat the right things and just know what's not good for you, right? So it's easy for me. Sugar's my main thing. I cut the sugar out, I'll lose kilos and kilos. And then I cut the carbs out and I replace them with healthier carbs like sweet potato or couscous. Can't do brown rice now, that's giving me PTSD, but do you know what I mean? Like, couscous is real, like, it's a good carbohydrate for me, you know? And sweet potato probably the best one for me. It's like, I still like to eat well when I'm dieting, you know? It shouldn't be a chore.
And just in terms of the weight cut itself, what's the hardest part of a weight cut?
Do you know what? I used to cut weight so badly. I used to do it in a sauna. And that was it's because I was never managed well as a young fighter. And the education wasn't there also, right? The education wasn't there. So, I used to get to a particular weight and then just lose 5 kilos in the sauna. And then the education started coming in and water loading and things like that. So that's always been my best technique, is water loading. So if I'm making 70 kilos, I'll make sure at fight week I'm 76. And then probably if I'm fighting on the Saturday before, I'll start water loading. I'll do 5 litres, 10 litres, 10 litres, 5 litres, and I taper off. And then the day before the weigh-in, which would be the Thursday, if I'm weighing in on a Friday, I'll stop drinking at midday on Thursday. Still eating, clean, like very obviously lowering my carbohydrates a lot, so I don't retain water. But on the Thursday, I'd stop drinking about midday, and then by Friday, weigh-in day, I'm probably about a kilo out, maybe a kilo and a bit, 1.2, and then I just have a hot Epsom salt bath, and I lose that weight in an hour, and I feel fresh. I don't feel like drained and dehydrated like you do with sauna cuts. It's the worst thing to do.
And just in terms of the fight itself, obviously you've got your ring walk. Like, what mode are you when you're walking out into the ring, and how does that change when you're in the octagon or if you're on the mat itself?
Opponent in the red corner, standing 5 feet 7 inches tall. He weighed in officially at 155.4 pounds. A professional record of 8 wins, 3 defeats. Representing Revolution Martial Arts from London, England. Presenting Steve the Spartan.
Visualization is my biggest skill, I think. Visualization for me is a key thing. So in the whole camp, I'm visualizing positive things. When you get tired and drained and your diet is you're tapering off your carbs, the negative thoughts come in, right? I just replace that with positive. I've got a few mantras and things like that I'm talking to myself. When I'm walking down that ramp towards the cage, like, I'm telling myself I'm a champion. I'm puffing my chest out, I'm peacocking, you know, I'm giving those power poses, hands on my hips, hands above my heads. That's not to play to the crowd. These are things for me. So when I'm walking down the ramp to the cage, that's when the negativity wants to creep in. That's when your brain is going, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to fight another man half naked in the cage. Like, turn around. But like, you've got to just replace those thoughts with just positivity, man. Like, and you'll see if you ever watch my fights, and I suppose you've watched some of my fights. I'm standing there. I'm cool at the beginning of the fight. My hands are on my hips, and I'm laser focused. Other people have that nervous energy, and they're bouncing around and pumping, like having to pump this. I don't need to. I'm pumped. Like, my brain is what needs to be pumped, not my body. My body's ready. It's been ready for 12 weeks. Or I've taken 12 weeks to get ready. My body's ready. It's my brain.
So what's the hardest part of losing a fight?
Okay, so like I've battled with this quite a lot. It's knowing that the other person hasn't beat me, I've beaten myself. So there's been none of my losses that I've been outskilled. Any. Like obviously the most famous one, Conor McGregor. I know that, and it's not something I'm going to say, oh, I lost because of this. Like, I would never be who Conor McGregor is. I'm not that guy. I'm the boring guy that says, yeah, I'm going to win by submission. No one wants to see you choke someone out. They want to see you knock someone out, right? Yeah. I'm not him. I would never be the fighter he is, and I don't ever believe that I would have been, right? But I do believe at that point in time I should have beat him. No doubt about that in my mind. I had better skills than he did at the time. His striking was always impeccable, but I had the skills to beat him. But I didn't, because I wasn't prepared. I was training 3 times a week as opposed to 3 times a day. Like I said, I was buying a house. My wife was 8 months pregnant. I just bought a house, and I moved into it the weekend before I fought him. And my mind just wasn't on the fight at any point in that camp. Yeah. I should have pulled out, but my ego didn't let me pull out, you know? I thought, I can still win it. And then by that point, it's too late to pull out, you know? Because then you're a dickhead. Like, so, with another one of my losses, again, I was totally underprepared. Took it for granted a little bit. The only loss that I think, I will say outskilled, because he is an amazing fighter and I love watching him fight, is Jai Herbert, which is my last loss. I absolutely obliterated him the whole of the first round. He didn't touch me. It would have been a 10-8 round, right? But he was waiting for his moment. Like, he defended very, very well. We stood up and he caught me with a shot that he's very good at throwing. And I lost concentration for a split second. At the beginning of the round, I was catching him standing up. I caught him with a hook, I caught him with a jab, and then he was on the back foot and he was running away, which, if you know Jai, that's when he gets knocked out, is when he's on the back foot and you catch him on the chin. But again, his striking's impeccable. He caught me flat-footed. He goaded me to slip. I slipped, and as I threw a hot hook where he's taller and I dipped, he caught me with a knee. Now, that wasn't a tough loss for me. Like, yeah, I can look at it and say, okay, I should have kept on his back, or I should have finished him in mount. I shouldn't have gone for the arm bar that started the scramble where we stood up. I should have just waited out the round. No, like, that's not a tough loss because he caught me, and that's MMA. The tough loss is the Conor fight, knowing that I weren't prepared, or my first pro fight, knowing that I probably shouldn't have fought a guy that was already 5-0, you know? But again, that's bad management. So it's knowing, for me, it's jiu-jitsu competitions as well. Not like, to be honest, I do well when I do jiu-jitsu, it's my thing, right? But I enter competitions sometimes and underprepared. Like, I'll enter a big competition knowing that I should have trained better for it, or my fitness should be better, and I don't perform as well. I might still win a gold medal, but I don't perform as well. I don't perform like me, you know? My last competition, I was ready for it. I just made a stupid mistake. And the guy capitalised on the mistake. He scored 2 points, and then he was just defensive for the rest of the fight. And I was putting it on him, and he just defended really well. I couldn't score my points, and he won 2-0. He then went through and won the final. So that was tough as well. I beat myself up about it, but you can say, like, it's just jiu-jitsu. But that means a lot to me, you know, and it means a lot to people that really prepare themselves for it. And obviously, for me as well, there's a certain expectation. I don't want my guys to see me lose. Do you know what I mean? I've got to set a standard here, you know? I've got some absolute savages in this place. And it's a mentality that I run with, and like, I'm 36, you know, like, I can't do this for much longer at the level I'm doing it at, you know. I should be competing at the Master 2 category at Black Belt, but I don't. I still compete at adult. Again, that's my ego. Like, I can still get these guys, you know. I'm still fit, I'm still strong, my body's still allowing me to. But that's not going to last forever, you know? Yeah. These 26, 27-year-olds that are black belts are going to start developing their game a lot more, and my body's going to get older. I'm not going to be able to keep up, and there's going to be a bitter pill to swallow, but it's going to have to come. But and then those losses will be tough, because in my head I'm losing to someone I should lose to.
Just finally to wrap it up, gi or no gi?
Both, man.
Really?
Both. Like, you'll ask my students, right? Danielle, come here. Gi or no gi?
No gi.
Right. So you'll ask some of my students and they'll say no gi, or a few of them will say gi. But like, in my eyes, you just got to be a well-rounded grappler, and that's what I'm trying to instill in people. Like, I can take my no gi. I have different games for gi and no gi, right? Because obviously different submissions are allowed. You can use the collar, but ultimately everything I can do in no gi, I can do in gi. Yeah. And one of my idols, Leo Vieira, taught me that. So I got my blue and my purple belt from Leo Vieira. I got my brown and my black belt from Ricardo Vieira, as well as my coach Marco Cagna. So that whole Vieira brother mentality, which you got some of the best jiu-jitsu athletes in the world idolized the Vieira brothers. You got the Miao brothers, you got the Mendez brothers, you got other people that just idolized those guys because of the way they innovated jiu-jitsu. But ultimately, one is a gi guy and one is a no gi guy. So I had the best of both worlds, and my game imitates both of those. But Leo Vieira once said to me, like, just be one or the other. You can everything you can do in no gi, you can do in gi.
That was me with Steve O'Keefe. I hope you enjoyed, and be sure to tune in next time.